At the southern end of Lord Howe Island, Mount Gower and Mount Lichens stand like towering sentinels. Their summits are covered by a rare island cloud forest, home to about 85% of the island's endemic plant species. Walking into that forest feels like stepping into a fairy tale, and it's often veiled in mist as warm ocean winds hit the mountains and are forced to suddenly rise and cool.
There are not many islands in the world with mountains as tall as we have, 875 metres high, and they stick up so high into the atmosphere that they actually create their own cloud for most of the summer. So the conditions on the summit are very, very moist, and that favours the growth of mosses and ferns in particular. And some plants over millions of years have evolved just to live on that summit.
The gnarled mossy cloud forest ecosystem has been under threat from rodents and changes in the climate. In 2019, a multi-million-dollar project was launched to eradicate more than 350,000 rodents on the island.
The rodent eradication project wasn't about killing rats. It was about actually protecting this environment. They're responsible for 5 species of birds that became extinct, 13 invertebrates, and a lot of critically endangered animals on the island because of our location and their and small amount of habitat. But the rodents were the biggest threat, I guess, to the ecology and biodiversity of the island, and the bounce back has been enormous.
5 years on, more than 30 threatened plant and animal species are recovering, including birds, insects and snails.
And we're just now 5 years later seeing the beginning of a renaissance of this island.
The ground-dwelling Lord Howe Island woodhen is a shining symbol of the rodent eradication success. The species once pushed to the brink of extinction.
Our woodhen numbers, they have gone from about 200 woodhens 5 years ago to over 2,000 woodhens now.
One man who's held a front row seat to the environmental transformation is 5th generation islander Jack Schick.
Mount Gower's the far one, the one on the right hand side, as you can see there.
The 63-year-old mountain guide has scaled to the summit of Mount Gower about 2,400 times. As he leads people up the challenging climb and along cliffside paths not for the faint-hearted, he often stops to highlight how endemic plants and animals are bouncing back now the rodents are gone.
Plants that are coming up, so the rats would have eaten all those seeds. The amount of birds that are coming back too, silver-eyes, golden whistlers, black-winged petrels, some of the seabirds, just unbelievable. Blowing me out of the water, I can't believe it. I just can't believe how quickly things have been happening. I think too, what you don't realise when you're walking through a forest for years and years, I've been walking through here since I was a kid, and you think that's normal. But until something's taken out, a predator or whatever happens, all of a sudden it's not normal anymore, and you start to see the real normal when things start to recover. So that's what's blowing me out of the water, yeah.
There's a steep final push to the summit.
Rope City here.
Once in the cloud forest, Jack marvels at the regenerating palms, including the critically endangered little mountain palm, which lives in a small area at the summit.
Look at the seeds down here on the ground, just all waiting for germination. Just amazing how many are dropping down to the ground.
At the summit, the crescent-shaped island stretches out below, while rare Providence petrels circle overhead. They nest almost exclusively on Lord Howe Island. Jack Schick emulates the birds' sounds, calling them down from the sky. The birds' nesting grounds on Mount Gower are now safe from rat predation and introduced owls, and it's led to a rapid jump in breeding success. Here at the towering summit of Mount Gower, the cloud forest ecosystem is regarded as one of the most rare and fragile in the world. Scientists say Lord Howe Island is a barometer for climate change and the ability of species to adapt.
And as the world is warming up, Often those clouds are disappearing. Places like the cloud forests are getting much drier, and they basically go into drought and can't exist anymore. So the cloud forests here are a really important ecosystem to really monitor how climate change impacts are progressing in vulnerable ecosystems.
Ian Hutton is involved in long-term climate change research to track temperature changes on Mount Gower.
Over about 15 years, we have been putting temperature loggers at 100-metre intervals from sea level to the mountain tops and a few across the summit itself. And with 15 years of data, we'll be able to analyse and see what changes are happening.
Ian is also using drone technology to aerially map the summit forest over time.
When we have extreme dry years and the cloud lifts off the mountains, we've seen a fairly significant impact on tree species, not just the small plants.
Back at sea level, the island's coral reef is considered another important climate change marker. It's the most southerly barrier reef in the world.
We have influences from both tropical environments, subtropical and temperate environments. So it provides this really unique combination of different species that flourish in a pristine, just a really healthy marine system.
In February and March, the reef experienced a significant coral bleaching event. The New South Wales Department of Primary Industries is now working with the University of Newcastle and the University of New South Wales to monitor the reef's recovery.
We've seen our reef rebound really, really strongly. So we know that, it can die off very, very quickly through a bleaching event, but we also know that it can recover very, very quickly too.
Dean Hisco says there remains a strong focus among the island's 400-strong population on sustainability and protecting their island environment.
There's a good reason that it remains so beautiful and unspoilt, and that's because the islanders themselves have really taken a strong sense of pride and stewardship in the environment.
A hybrid solar farm switched on in 2021 now generates nearly 70% of the island's energy needs, dramatically reducing the need for imported diesel. Keeping rodents out also remains a priority. All arrivals on the island, people and freight, are scrutinised by sniffer dogs.
Lord Howe is a country in itself relative to Australia, so everything from the mainland could potentially become an issue for Lord Howe. There's a huge amount of pressure. It's such a unique and sort of special place. I think to preserve that, we have to work hard to protect it in those kind of ways.
Even visitors to the island paradise are doing their part. Ian Hutton began running weeding eco tours in 1995 and in the decades since has run around 100 tours with many return volunteers.
And the people that we have along this week are very special. These ones have adopted Lord Howe Island, and many of them have been maybe 20 times or 22 times.
Sydney-sider Ian Sinclair has been returning to the island and assisting with weeding every year for 24 years. His husband John Pemble is also part of the team.
This part of this island is very, very special in a biodiversity sense. So it's really nice to be able to do something to help that in a very simple way.
Ian proposed to John at the top of Mount Gower, and they were married on the island after a morning spent removing weeds.
Well, I brought John here about 14 years ago, and as a bit of a test, if he liked it, I thought I maybe could keep him. And everybody else liked him too, or loved him, so I kept him. And
they now both work hard to restore and protect the island they love, enjoying plenty of wildlife encounters along the way.
And when there's a group of 20 people doing this every 6 months, it does show at the end that people power and volunteers do a really good job, and you just be smart about it, you can get rid of a lot of weeds.